Good morning and welcome to OWTCon 21. I hope this conference finds you all safe and well. We all wish the pandemic would go away, but as long as it's here, this conference has to take place online. We have to keep the conversation going. We have to keep the conversation going because open source is not just about coding and technology, it's about people. It's about people sharing software and values. OW2 as well is a community. It's a community of some 2,500 people, 46% of them from Europe, 20% of them from North America, 17% from Asia, and 17% from the rest of the world. It's a community of individuals and also of legal entities. We have some 25-30 legal entities, and 2/3 of them are SMEs, most of them from Europe. So that's our community. So we need to keep this conversation going within our community and also with the rest of the world. But what kind of conversation are we talking about? And here I'd like to comment on the theme of the conference, leveraging the European open source ecosystem. You may all be familiar by now with my analysis of the 4 moments of the free, libre and open source software movement. With the first moment, in the 80s, driven by developers and for developers, and driven by ethical values. Then there is a second moment, towards the middle of second half of the 90s, by entrepreneurs, leveraging the open source business model to grab market share. Then with cloud computing emerging around 2010, we have another moment with consortiums and companies working together and using open source software as a vehicle for collaborative innovation. And then more recently, we had what I call the industry moment with conventional board of directors representing pension funds, authorizing management teams to spend billions of dollars or euros investing in open source companies. So if this analysis is correct, what it shows is probably a growing contradiction between individual developers driven by their own values and motivated by the fact that open source gives them control over their work and over the destiny of their work in a sort of an artistic situation. That's on one hand. On the other hand, we have capitalistic situations, corporations that are pursuing interests that may be very different from those of the developers, and all this is still open source. And in the middle, we have different flavors, all different type of situations. We think there is a way to manage this growing contradiction, and we think that open source organizations have a role to play. Not just by advocating or lobbying or posting papers, but also by doing something. At OW2, we are proud to be part of the production chain, the value chain of the open source software. You find on the OW2 website software, real software, that solves real-life business problems. It's not just our members and our project that are part of this value chain. We, as an independent organization, we are also creating resources to try and support this ecosystem. The first resource we are developing, and we've been working on it for the last 2-3 years, is what we call market readiness levels. It's a composite index that positions the OW2 project according to an acceptability rating by conventional decision makers. We are addressing the needs, the culture, the expectations of the average decision maker, the one that is not an open source activist, the one that has been educated by proprietary vendors. So we try to address them in a way that is familiar to them. All our mature projects now have been rated by this market readiness level index. And that's something that is pretty unique to OW2. The next resource we have been developing over the last couple of years is what we call the OW2 Open Source Good Governance Initiative. We think there is more to managing open source software than just managing legal compliance. There are many different perspectives to open source software, legal of course, but technical, community, financial, etc. And we think that today it's time to have a comprehensive framework that enables CIOs to professionally manage open source software. It's the only way open source will reach out to all areas in the market. So with these two resources, with our code base, with our way to address different types of decision makers, different types of partners, that's the scope of the conference this year. That's what we call addressing or leveraging the European open source ecosystem, because of course we do that from a European perspective. And this theme is organized this year in 6 major sessions. Of course, we have a technical session showcasing the OW2 project. And we also have 3 technical sessions, one on technologies for the developers, one addressing cloud computing and open source software, and the third one by inviting third-party technologies or inviting third-party projects. And we have 2 non-technical sessions, one on governance and one on ecosystem and business models. These sessions are populated by all the talks that you can find on the program, by 45 speakers representing 15 countries. So this is a truly international conference. Now, those that were here last year will recognize our platform. It's based on Rocket Chat as the central interface. We have used OBS, a KDN Live, for the video editing. The program has been managed through pre-talks. All the conference web pages have been developed with XWiki. And the video streaming and archiving is done with YouTube and BitTube. And you see one innovation here. This year we have Jitsi integrated into our platform. And Jitsi will enable us to run 2 sessions, 2 interactive sessions. We're not taking much risk here. A roundtable and the award ceremony. So because all the presentations have been recorded for the sake of quality and timing, you can be sure that all the talks will start at the exact time specified in the program. So again, I refer you to the program webpage on the conference website. If you look at the interface, you're already there, of course. What you see on the left pane a series of chat rooms. So at the top, you will have all presentation chat rooms. Each presentation will be accompanied by a dedicated room. You will be able to use that chat to ask questions to the speakers. So that's our way to interactively manage Q&A sessions. Now, what you see at the bottom, the second part of the list, are what we call the sponsored chat rooms. So each sponsor this year has been afforded a chat room. They do what they like with it. So I invite you to visit them. It's an innovation. We don't know exactly how it is going to work. They don't know either. So please just make them work. Now with that, it's time for some thank yous. First of all, I want to thank the team that brought you the resources I've been mentioning, and of course this conference. So Antoine Moutier, Olivier Bouzereau, Martin Amand, Selva Yashmil Ramagopalan, Catherine Noël, Pierre-Yves Gibello, and Olivier Lizuna. And of course, I want to thank our sponsors, starting with Orange, then Huawei, the City of Paris, the Eclipse Foundation, Microsoft, the Morphemic Project, Engineering, OnlyOffice, the Open Infrastructure Foundation, Vortex and Red Hat. And of course, thank you to our speakers and thank you, the attendees, for being here. It means a lot to us. And with that, I declare open OW2Con 21. Enjoy the conference.
Good morning and a warm welcome to the 10th edition of OW2 Conference. This year again, I'm not able to see your face, but I can easily imagine an assembly of people of different countries, different cultures, different companies. You've joined this event as a developer, as a CIO, as a strategist, as a scientist, for the sake of curiosity maybe. I'd like to ask you a question. What do you have in common? Let's take an example. What do FactorFX and Microsoft companies have in common? A hint, they've recently joined the OW2 community. But why? The response is simple, and I suppose you already know. They embrace the free and open source software rules. Would you call me naive? Of course, the business model of OW2's members are different. Their size are different. More than that, Microsoft and open source was not a love story for years. On the other hand, for many of our members, free and open source software is the mainspring of their activity. That being said, back to the question, what do we have in common? A contract. A legal contract between software providers and users. An enforceable contract that gives users the freedom to run a program for any purpose, the freedom to study how the program works, the freedom to redistribute copies of the program, the freedom to distribute copies of your modified versions. With the time being, this contract appeared to be a catalyst for positive side effects, greater innovation, more resilient industry, a more rewarding way of working for developers, at the end, a more vibrant ecosystem with limited vendor lock-in. We are all here for one of several reasons above mentioned. We are a global organization, but it appears these positive effects are the ones claimed by European citizens. This year's topic is leveraging the European open source ecosystem. During this conference, you will discover how much this ecosystem is already vibrant, how OW2 has built year after year a community dedicated to foster a mature open source software industry. As usual, I could not open this conference without paying a tribute to the management office, the team that operates OW2 day after day, behind the scene and even without a proper scene. You are the fuel, they are the engine. Sorry for the metaphor. You are the code, they are the compiler. Speaking of whom, I will now let Cedric Thomas, our CEO, introduce the rich program for these next 2 days of OW2 conference. Thank you and welcome again to OW2Con 2021 edition.